Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Ventures. This is the ninth episode of our podcast dedicated to everything about venture building. My name is Mario Apino. I'm the managing partner and co-founder of Future Labs Ventures, and I'm here together with my fellow host and colleague, our growth lead, Shikal Pular. We're very excited about today podcast because we have a guest of honor, Caeser Sengupta, founder of Arta Finance. Welcome, Caesar, to our conversations.
Thank you, Mario and Sheetal, for having me on. It's wonderful to be with you.
Great. Let's dive straight in. Look, with the global launch of Arta Finance just a few weeks ago, I'm pretty sure that everyone in the audience by now knows about Arta. For those two that don't, I wanted to ask you with a first question about why Arta. What did you see, in this particular space? And coupled with that, you were a senior executive at Google. Clearly, a jump into the unknown and the entrepreneurial journey. And so, if you can comment, and ground us, in your, what did you see as a vision and inspiring that led you make such a leap?
Start a little bit with my story of why how I sort of grew through Google and ended up in Arta. That explains a little bit of why we started Arta and what we're doing in Arta. So I was at Google for about 15 years, building products for most of my career there. Two chapters. First chapter in the US, where I built operating systems. And then in 2014, when my boss Sundar became CEO, he asked me to move back to Singapore and lead an effort called MX Billion Users. So long story short, we got to build a bunch of products that really got me deep into fintech. And through that, a couple of data insights came out. One, at some point, we realized that in order to truly go deep into fintech, we kind of have to do it as a revenue direct need, as a company that's so part of the finance already. And the best way to do that was as a startup. Second part of it was, it was similar to, I guess, the journey you went to when you left McKinsey and started Future Labs. At some point you ask yourself, I've worked in a real institution, I'm very happy with it, but will I be able to do this without training wheels, right? Can I do it on my own? So that's a question that comes up, and that was the second point. Right. The third point was my co-founders and I had 8 co-founders, and we left Google with about 30 of us who had worked together for a very long time. We had a problem that we wanted to solve for ourselves. And that was this problem that, when you're a professional, as you grow in your career, at some point you start using private banks and wealth managers, and you realize, wow, these things are powerful. But then you realize they're so old schools and expensive and kludgy and paper-based, and we are still signing PDFs and doing voice logs. And then the question came to us, surely we can do this strategy using technology. And if we do use technology to democratize essentially private banking, we can possibly make it available to millions more professionals like us, right? And why have them wait till they're 45, 50 to get started? What if they got started at 30? What a profound impact you could have on their lives. So those 3 big things came together and got us started in Arta.
Amazing. Absolutely. I recognize, many similarities of that amazingly.
Absolutely. I think from my side, what really stands out with Arta is your fundraising journey. So I think I would really like to know, in the sense, how did you approach funding? What was your fundraising strategy, and what made it so successful in the view that who have gained the kind of clarity that you have?
So this is probably going to be the least insightful part of our conversation because of one big factor. So
I was going to say, it's not just, a typical fundraise, because raising 90 million plus just before even starting, I guess, must have been an amazing feat. So we definitely want to learn a trick or to move there to apply.
First of all, I think we were extremely fortunate. A bunch of us who are started Arta, we were much further along in our careers. I kind of joke often that this is, it's a geriatric startup. We have a bunch of old people starting a company. One advantage of being a bunch of old people starting a company is that you worked with a lot of people, right? And you have relationships and connections that you break up over time. So our fundraising journey actually started off while we were sort of exiting Google and talking to people about this idea. And so we have 140 angels, and includes like Eric Schmid, Sundar, Mikesh Arora of Palo Alto Networks, Michael Milak of Mastercard. Essentially, these were all ex-colleagues, ex-partners that we had worked with. So, of the 140, I would say 90% of them are people who were investing in us in a way because they wanted to continue working with the team, and because this problem resonated with them. Right? They were all professionals who had gone through this in their lives. And they were like, wow, if you're solving this, I think you can help me when I was 20 years back, or the version of me that's like now going out. And so we had a huge amount of commitment from our angels. And again, for our institutional partners, P15 came in and led our seed round. I had worked with Shalinga in the past, who was on the board of a few companies together. So for a number of years, we've seen each other operate in that space. So, there was no doubt in my mind. We didn't even go through much of a negotiation or something. It was just, this is how we need to partner. And then we wanted like partners who were very deep in finance. So Rivet and Co2, these are two of the top investors in the world. Rivet is basically invested in every single, successful fintech in the world. And so when we met the leadership there, and again, these were people we had known for a while. So I think for us, the fundraise turned out to be much more about finding the right partners who could help us in this journey. And arguably, one question people ask is, why are you raising so much so early? So first of all, when you try to build private banking, it's a massive effort. So you can't build a point product. You've got to solve for all aspects of someone's financial life. So it's a pretty big bit out. This is a hard tech problem. So we needed capital for that. Second, the biggest thing was we wanted to pull in the right partners early, right? We didn't care about dilution as much, or other things that often people get caught up, because we felt like, if this becomes successful, this is such a big opportunity that we'll all do very well. And so having the right partners early really meant a big deal to us. I mean, we had a couple of investors who were willing to give us a much higher valuation, but we specifically went with these partners just because we felt like they were the ones who could help us make this successful. And reality is, because startup is very unpredictable, right? It's very hard. Like the odds of any startup succeeding are very, very small. And so you need the right partners who can help you. And so that's how we approach that fundraising now. And even now, like, EDV joined as an investor in the last few years. It was really from our perspective of like, who are the partners who can help us be successful? So we started working with these partners. And then over the last 3 years, I think I'm extremely grateful and very, very fortunate doing it.
Just stepping back a bit, for people listening and watching this, many of them would be startup founders, knocking doors with several investors. So what advice would you give them just from your early days? Can you record a conversation you had or a learning you had, then you can share with them?
So I'd say something slightly counterintuitive. If you're starting to knock doors of investors when you're in your fundraise, it's already kind of late. Like, you almost need to think about your life much earlier, and think about like every person you're interacting with, every partner you're interacting with, like in the future, could there be someone to support you on, when you go crazy and start a crazy mission?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what worked out really well for us. Every partner conversation we had when, my co-founder Felix and I were leading Lead and all of our ecosystem for Google Pay. And there are so many bank CEOs who are like, okay, what are you guys doing? We would love to stay connected. And one way to stay connected with Media Invest. But those were all conversations and relationships that started many years back. So I think that is probably the only big takeaway I would have had, because we have very few angel investors that we met for the first time. All of these were people who've known us for many, many years.
I think you're from what you're saying, you're like, I guess the word trust comes to mind in two ways. One is, indeed, you establish this relationship over time, right? And they get to know you. So I think you're asking then for capital. It's always better to ask for people that have known your journey, to trust you, they see you. On the other side, as you also said, getting the right investors, especially in financial services. The parting with money for high net worth individuals or any person requires a level of trust, and therefore populating the cap table with the right partners indeed is a, I guess, smart strategy, and one that will pay off indeed. I want to double click a bit on your entrepreneurial journey, right? Out of our experience, we know that we start with a vision, have an amazing, view of how the first 12, 24 months pan out. What things would you say, looking back at the past couple of years, have gone, differently? Did you have to adapt, whether it's on the team side, or market side, or the product,
I would probably bring up three things. One that was on the operational side, and sort of two, second, and insight about about the product, and third was just a big trend that hit all of us. So first on the operational side, I had completely underestimated how difficult working across two offices in a startup would be. Now, this was the same team that did Google Pay. We worked together remotely for a long time, but it's very different when you're inside a large organization with all the facility of a large organization, all the setup, than when you're coming out in a startup, right? Like even trivial things like setting up video conferencing, is something you have to do yourself. There's no IT person. Now I am the IT man. I'm the IT guy or boss for a long time. And so, the ability to travel, the ability to have those conversations. So that turned out to be, a challenge that we're still dealing with. Like we're constantly trying to think of like ways in which we can work better across our offices. I think it's one of our unique strengths that we have such complementary teams across two different offices in Silicon Valley and in Singapore. But it's also one of the things that's been sort of the most challenging and we've built on. So that was one. Second big insight, and this is more of we started in the US. Arta opened up in the US last year. That's been going well since then, and we just opened Singapore 10 days back. The US, what we hadn't realized was how much of the US investing journey or financial journey is all about taxes, right? It is. So when we started, we started with a set of very brilliant like public market strategies. One of those was one strategy. But what we realized is people can deeply work but it affects things. So then we spent a bunch of time actually making our entire tech infrastructure tax aware. So we can do things like tax loss harvesting. So then we launched a product on direct indexing where instead of buying S&P 500, the strategy is S&P 500 direct indexing buys the components and buys and sells which generate tax losses. We went and got an insurance license and created these tax shelter-like setups. So that was just one of those things that as a company, you go in and then realize, wait, in this market, this particular thing really matters. And the third big trend that hit all of us across the world was generative AI. So as a company, we have a bunch of people who came out of Google Research who were deep in AI. And we had been exposed to generative AI, but it wasn't out in the market. So most of our AI work was around machine learning, convex optimizations, the more traditional forms of AI. And then out of the water came ChatGPT and generative AI and large language models, and it changed the world in many ways, and it's changing the world. So over the last year, we've really spent a lot of time working on how to take LLMs and finding the unique combinations and adapting it, putting it together with the rest of our AI and tech system to figure out how AI can have a huge impact on love. So I think those were three big learnings out here over the last 3 years.
I must say that we had a glimpse that in our previous sessions, private session, was amazing to see how you could create mini chief investment officers, or private backers, so that can really be helpful.
But one thing that when I was connecting with my network over the last couple of days and letting him know that I will be interviewing you, one thing I wanted to hear from them is what is it that you'd like him to ask Caeser, just from a perspective of people in the industry and how they view you. I think one thing that really resonated with me, and it was a clear question, was the sheer admiration they have for you for having achieved what you achieved, but then also how you put it across as though it hasn't been as difficult, which it's a skill whereby you're able to, share your experience.
You don't move my mother.
No. And it's a skill by which the way you communicate, and it's of course very inspirational for those who are listening and who also want to chart a similar path. But then what I would like to ask you is what really kept you up at night over the last couple of years while you were visiting Arta and beyond?
So much. At some level, if you think about it, startups are like a little baby, right? You're doing a startup, there's like, you're wishing for what you want it to be. but it has to learn to walk, it has to learn to run, it has to feed itself. And there are all these steps that are going through. And there are a million different ways in which, it can be affected in lots of negative ways. So I think part of it is just the sheer like keeping the startup going keeps you up at night. I think a second bit that I feel a lot of pressure for is pressure. I wouldn't say negatively, but I feel a responsibility. Is we have an incredible team. There's a ton of people who could have gone and done anything in life, right? We have 100 people at Arta. All of them were superstars in their careers, right? They were all senior people at Google, Facebook, banks, at private equity. They've taken a bet on our startups, right? And in a way, like, it is high risk and it is something that we have to make happen. So, I mean, there are those things that do keep me up at night. But all in all, I think it's in like the opportunity we have here is something that, is in a way, on a positive way, keeps you up at night. Because if you think about the mission we are on, it's about making money work for people. Step one of this is to solve for professionals. That'll take us 5, 6 years, 7 years, right? But we are starting to work with banks around the world, financial institutions around the world, to bring this to many, many more countries. And the ultimate goal is, can you take technology and finance and make it work for everyone? Like, do you need to have $5 million or even $500,000 or $5,000? Why shouldn't it work for you if you have $500, right? Technology works the same way. For the use Gmail, it doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire or a student, right? And so if you can make finance work that great, that's a tremendous opportunity. And I think that, to me, it keeps me going about if like you're able to even achieve 10% of that in your life, then you feel like you've made some kind of difference because it's life.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Your passion.
Absolutely. And I think it's one that inspires you like the rest of the team as well. You're about 2 years, like into the game. I guess it's still day one, I assume. So looking forward at your singing journey, how are you actually equipping your Arta now that is to be launched in different markets? You're like, and now with the global launch in Singapore, to really be successful? Is it more? Given that also it's a regulated industry, right, at the end.
So it's a couple of different things. I think we've combined sort of very disciplined and systematic ways of building our technology systems, building security around the right kind of partnerships. At Arta, everybody gets an account in BNY Pershing, one of the world's largest custodians. The system is architected to be very safe and secure. And then all of our investment processes, we basically follow institutional quality systems and process, right? Like whether it's access to private equity, whether how we think about a public market strategy. So there's a piece of it that is sort of, in a way, much more mature than a startup would do. But then there's a part of the company that has to operate much more like a nimble startup. So as we're growing through this growing journey, it's how do you keep these two things going in tandem? They're actually very different things. I think we've so far managed it, but I think as the market's complexity increases, partner complexity increases, that's something that we have to be very mindful of, because we cannot sacrifice the quality, but at the same time, we cannot operate like a very large, slow institution, right? So that's the interesting trade-off we've got to constantly.
Absolutely, and actually that's a very important area. I think especially for us, like Fish Labs, as you know, works like in partnership with large corporates to stand up the next generation of ventures. So, and you are in a similar way, actually working with institutions like Bank of New York Mellon, large organization. They typically, I think your corporates is right to say that they work at a different kind. So we say like it's a different time zone. I started off right, because. Yeah, what's been your experience there? How did you actually make these, partners move at a pace, or again, your balance, like you lose these two realities, right? One is at fast pace, like your meet speed, every day counts. You know how much capital you're burning every hour, right? Let alone weeks. The others are much more, of course, organization that they don't talk like in days or weeks necessarily, right? And
So then partly we've been quite fortunate, and then we've also picked our partners actually. So even though BNY is one of the world's oldest banks, probably the oldest bank,
yes,
right?
well, an Italian bank was the oldest bank you ever saw it in. But indeed, you're going to referring to the Medici family, not the Montelepaschi, but whatever.
I thought you were referring to the Vatican, but no.
Okay. That's even more dangerous.
But jokes apart, I think we chose BNY because even though they were so venerated and established, they were willing to work very well with us. And from their CEO Robin down to the working teams, they were exceedingly excited about inventing this new space with us. So a lot of the stuff I talked about around taxes in the US, once we realized this, we went back to them and we realized we had to develop capabilities on both sides in order to be able to do sort of very fine-grained tax loss harvesting. And we were very lucky that they were actually very eager to do it. So I think we've chosen partners very well. I would say we've been fortunate maybe in those partners. But this is a constant ongoing. Even within has been like, in Arta, we give access to alternative assets and very high quality private equity, private credit, real estate. And there are partners like KKR who would be incredibly visionary, right? And they're one of the world's largest private equity firm. But the way they've leaned in on communicating with our members, right, recording videos and just sort of innovating in that space has been great. There are other partners who not quite been that way. So you have to sort of pick the partners and sort of dive in and go deeper into the partners.
Yeah, I think that resonates very well. I think you are venturing the wild, but actually you share many similarities of drawing from the large corporate advantage, right? Like we talked about BNY in terms of the trust, you're being one of the most established, like a custodian, bank, and leveraging on that, their expertise in tax, right? You'll probably help you dramatically in achieving certain things, and then the KKRs, the others, but managing that governance in an active way, possibly also they're drawing their leadership, and into the journey about what you're trying to do together. I think it's an area that and for us is paramount. It's the bread and butter of what we're here to do. Is giving an unfair advantage to ventures that have that vision, that scale, that ability to speed, but then also benefit from the scale of large organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's beautiful about the product is helping democratize alternatives in a way that has never happened. I know there's a lot of talk about democratizing private equity, making it available to the investors and so on and so forth. I think what Arta is doing is taking an active step in that direction, as opposed to trying to structure products and to wondering whether they will fit in the market or not. So I think phenomenal job there.
That's been actually a core part of what we've done. And let me give you one example where it's less relevant in Singapore.
Yeah.
But in the US, we discovered that there are certain forms of insurance that the Rockefellers and others use to transition wealth between generations in a very tax efficient manner. And these were typically done for $100, $200 million, estates. Mm. We got the licenses. We figured out our head of return, Sam Mullen, somebody comes from the deep within the insurance world, but shares that same philosophy of wanting to democratize. And now we're doing it for people who are transitioning $1 million, right? And it's the same tech. It's the same regulatory stuff. It's the same sort of financial product, but with a little bit of work, you could now expand it to millions more.
Right. Yeah, that's phenomenal, to be honest, about the product. Yeah. I guess.
Maybe one other question on your scaling journey. In our conversation, I love the way that you think about B2C and B2B. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because many oftentimes ventures of VD are either B2C focused or indeed there's more of an enterprise route, like you did.
So it's a controversial approach we've taken. We'll see if it works in a few years. But I'll give you an answer philosophically and then very technically. Philosophically, the mission we are on is bigger than any one company can do. We want to take these financial superpowers and bring them to billions of people. We're in a regulatory space, right? to be honest, being regulated in 2 countries is hard enough. Imagine being regulated in like 100 countries in all Taiwan, right? So this is bigger than us. And it's not just about regulating in the countries. These are very nuanced, large segments of population. There are certain segments of population that will come directly to us, but there are many who have been working with their banks or the financial institutions for many years. Why should we ignore them? So there's one part as just philosophically, what we are trying to do is bigger than what we can do alone. But on a purely tactical basis, I think basically we will scale to VV, right? Like that's where when you work with partners, a lot of the scaling over the next 2 to 5 years will happen with as we take everything we package together, we open it up to banks and financial institutions. They'll open it up in their countries, their existing members, existing clients. But you cannot build a good B2B product unless you build a good B2C product. In fact, this is the reason why a lot of B2B products suck so much, right? Because no end user has ever used it. And so that's why we have to build a great B2C product and to be able to serve the ecosystem. And this is an approach we learned at Chrome OS when we did Chromebooks. We built Chromebooks or Acer, Asus, Samsung. We learned this on GPay. All the banks in, pretty much every bank in the world uses GPay and is integrated in different ways. Everybody can differentiate in their own ways, but there is a certain platform, certain capability that brings the power of that system using technology to everyone. So I think that's how sort of we've approached it.
You're exactly right. I think we've been, mentioning this to a number of our kind of ventures, etc. But in general, right? Why is it that enterprise software has to look so bad? And it's still people that use it. And so can we have a proper, UX, UI, type of things, and then I think you have, of course, enterprise grade infrastructure to scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a good segue to kind of shift the focus onto you, Caesar, in terms of, I'd love to learn a lot more actually, about your leadership style. How do you lead? And also, what is the vision and the culture that you are distilling into Arta and it grows?
So let me talk about the culture first, because that's ultimately what drives, I would say, the success of anything. I think, the culture we have at Arta, in many ways, is like the old school early days of Rule. I mean, Rule was still growing startup-like. And what I mean by that is it's hungry. It's very high quality. We have very high expectations of ourselves and each other, but it's a very humble company. I have colleagues whose background looks, like it's intimidating. It's so accomplished. But they're extremely humble. They're willing to learn. They're willing to, be probe and raw. And they work very tightly together. We have a culture that basically we're one team. There's no organization. You have departments and all, but we're in this together, right? Because ultimately, as a startup, you're going to make this only work if you work together. But the most important part of our culture, I would say, is this belief in the long-term mission. Like, I think all of us want to do this because not just this mission, but want to work in like good. When we are 70 or 80, we look back and we feel like we played a role in something that had a bigger impact than just our own careers. Right? Careers, most of us have been very blessed to have good careers so far. And so what we did actually for a year, we were in stealth for about a year and a half. The only doc that we published externally was our culture doc. And it actually served very well because some candidates would read it and say, these people are a bunch of loonies, and they would go like, and you'd be like, fantastic. That doesn't work for you? Great interview, right? You've saved us time. And then some people would be like, this is why I want to work with you. And so I think it's helped us. And we've kept evolving it over time, and every so often we will try to go back to it. Yeah. So I think a lot of that is a culture. I would say my leadership style reflects that culture or is in service to that culture. So I fundamentally believe like I am serving the team, and my job in many ways is to clear obstacles for the team. If you've seen that game curling, but frankly, I'm this people. I'm swimming and directing things. So I think that's how I see it. And then together, I think we're trying to create something much greater than any one of us.
Yeah, I want to ask you a personal question also, because in many ways, like we shared that John feel like from, executive roles into really the entrepreneurial startup world, had you like a number of the ventures that were created, but how do you, I guess you like balance this, the time, I guess you mentioned that as a founder, you really are the IT department, you are in the strategy department, you're in the go-to-market department, etc. How do you balance that hands-on with also saying, look, you need to focus on some of the game-changing opportunities that are coming, and less drawn like into maybe the small things that are at the same time important. How do you make that decision? You find it challenging, and
I don't know how to categorize it because I had no choice. You have to do both. Right? You have to do both. You have to do it simultaneously at different times of the day. There is no choice. I mean, one of the exciting things about being a startup founder is you're actually in the details, right? I would say I was kind of in the details even in my Google roles because most of those projects I started. So Chrome OS I started, Google Pay I started with a bunch of other people. So I was very much in the details. But what happens in large organizations is in a few years, you're sort of out of it a little bit. But at a startup, you have no that you don't have that luxury for, probably the next decade or so. So I think that's pretty exciting. But at regular ones of time, I have to remind myself to step back and say, are we heading in the right direction?
Absolutely. I think in Future Labs, we have a lot of debate, especially around scaling and the concept that I think even YC Combinator's founders elaborate around manager mode. So you delegate more, and founder mode where you really have to strike the right balance of being actually still hands-on and not creating a hugely hierarchical organization.
I'm a quick video and found this. Sorry. Actually, founder mode, I don't think you could make great products.
Right.
Without something like founder mode. It doesn't matter whether you're in a large company or a small company. Like even when I was at Google, a bug in my product or it would hurt me physically, right? And so I think and it's true for a lot of my colleagues also. Yeah. It bothers them. They stay up at night because, we put out something that isn't what we're proud of. So I think, founder mode is not just a single person as the founder. It's pretty much the whole team working like that. When they care about the product so much, they lose sleep a lot about the way this works.
It is an interesting study from McKinsey that I've talked about that most founders or CEOs spend most of their time doing what was the question. And the guesses were several, all the way from strategy, follow-ups, team deliberation, and so forth. And the majority, the answer, the box that was fed in, was actually following up with the team, which is remarkable to me to see because it was a session on how CEOs and leaders can actually pivot from doing what they think they do not do, but they actually do all day, to doing more stuff which is around strategy, more stuff about foresight and vision and taking the company forward. So it's a great insight there from you, Sid, in the sense that you're definitely not in that bucket. But I think that's one of the bigger challenges some of the leaders and CEOs face in today's world, where they're definitely following up behind the team. So I think that also shows the right space for having the right team and the right people who actually step up as founders themselves or product or the division that they're leading. So there you go. Yeah.
Well, I follow up a little bit on the cultural side and leadership. No doubt that given point in time, ventures will face challenges, right? And they actually do every day in the good and bad. It's as long as it's 2 days up and 1 down, I think it's good. But I think also culture shows you when you have tough situations and positions. Can you give us maybe an example without sharing anything confidential of maybe a couple of things that you had to deal with, and how did the team come together, and show that culture that you can really lead the culture.
Yeah, I think I spoke about the tax example. That was one of those where it's not so much a pivot, but we've had to say, oh my God, this is really hard, but we have to do it. And then they can do it. Another similar example probably comes to mind where when we started out, we made a wrong call on infrastructure. A lot of the core bank ledger we were using from another vendor. And few months in, we realized it was not scaling. It wouldn't scale. And we had to rip it out. And that meant rewriting a very large portion of a stack, which the reality is nobody's going to see, right? But the quality of it is going to be felt by every user for decades. And so we had a large debate, and most people are like, a startup, we're going to burn capital building this piece of infrastructure when you could potentially get it from someone else. And I think we had a large debate, but we ended up doing it. It was super hard, but I think the culture of the team was very positive in terms of doing it. But also, yes, we made a mistake picking that. Let's not waste time, beating each other about why we did that and how we could have done it. We just moved on with that. So I think the culture has been very fast. Even today, I think on many fronts, we constantly like one of the challenges as startup faces and we face is there's so much opportunity and you don't know which one is going to pan out. Particularly for a startup, like when you're working with large companies, there can be very big moments of hope. All right. You read somebody very senior, I'm sure it happens so like I've made delivery what you're doing, they're like, this is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize 9 meetings later, the idea has been watered down, squished, and hope has been crushed in kid. And so you're gonna have to have a team that sees that is not hesitant, that continuously embrace it, and is able to take some of those disappointments and keep moving on.
Definitely. I mean, that's every startup journey. Every day you go fishing, you may not get the fish, but you start all over again the next morning.
Yeah.
That's why this whole world is not for the weak-hearted, for sure. But well, yeah, absolutely.
It is all about execution, I think, because that's where many people drop the ball, right? Because of course from a vision you're like it's amazing, but then who actually is able to execute? And ultimately, I always say, look, in a world of technology, of course tech matters, but people matters even more because it's people that move things and they manage to do that.
Absolutely. I have a question for Caeser on the work-life balance. It's one of my favorites because I love to learn from busy people like you. How do you manage your work-life balance? So what are some of the priorities and keep in mind, which potentially are beyond art, that's just so important for your own balance and stuff?
Can I be truthful?
Yes, of course you might.
What is work-life balance?
And this is something it's a questionable topic, and I totally appreciate you pushing back because they say that there is no line that divides work from life. It actually kind of merges the two, and you have to kind of live both aspects or several aspects of your life, in a sequential way and find a rhythm between all of them.
It's to give me a glib answer. Let me tell you how I view my life, right? I think often people don't understand how much work a startup is. Even if when you're consciously going into it, there's the theory and then there is the outer limits. And it's not just true of the founder, it's true of everybody in the company. Right. And so startup life is not February. And it's, we've seen people come in and we've seen people leave. Not because they don't like the team or the vision, but it's just not a kind of life as, you thought you were getting into. So one is, if you have so credit in the bank in your relationships with your family, then guess what? This is when that credit is going to get depleted. So I am hoping that I've built up enough credit with my kids and my wife that during this period where I am heavily leaning on them and, just basically trying to stay afloat, they can support me, and I'm very grateful for that. And then, at some point you get into the part of the journey where you're able to rebuild that credit. Okay, you invest more in it. I think there's those moments. The one thing I've been very careful of not sacrificing at startup, and this is something that, a bunch of my entrepreneur friends told me, was health. because especially at a certain point in life, after you're getting to, certain age, health is very hard to recover from. And so that's a piece that I've tried very, very hard to hold on to, that I do not sacrifice on my core health. But then again, I'm basically resting on the belief that my friends and my family and my relationships will all understand that I've taken on a mission. And at some point I'll be back, and at that point they're very raised here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Maybe. That's actually true. Absolutely.
There is no work-life balance. But then it's not for everyone, right? And but health, is an amazing topic. Perhaps as big as like the one that you're tackling with fintech, and for future labs. Stay tuned for some more news, because health and longevity is an area that we're actually doing like a number of things so for later discussions. Look, we're coming to an end of our conversation, and as usual, we'd like to ask you for some words of wisdom, whether it's to your younger self, embarkment 2 years ago. What would you have told yourself, but more in general, founders that are either thinking now about embarking into an entrepreneurial journey, or in fact they have been doing it for a couple of years. What are the key things that you would tell them? That, to your point of, is it for everyone? Not for everyone, but or things that they need to keep in mind when to stay true to themselves, in their vision, whatever their person.
So I'll actually give you, I'll share with you an advice that another co-founder shared with me, and this was on stage, and I've tried to I keep reminding myself of it every day, which is startups are a long journey, and you have to take care of yourself, right? And you define how it is, which is, whether it's health, or I generally am a very optimistic person, so mentally I'm fine. Everything I look at the positive side, but that's a benefit. If you're the type of person who worries a lot, has very high anxiety, then you need to worry about, you need to take care of yourself mentally, whatever aspect. But for, I think, founders, I would say that could be my biggest piece, because so much, often what gets ignored in the startup building life is the founder themselves. And so founder, I don't care, and nobody else is going to look after you with that. So you have no choice, and you let your company down if you have a mental collapse or a physical collapse or something like that. So, and it is a long journey. It is a really, really long journey.
Absolutely. Amazing. We have this game that we end up with every podcast that we're doing. So it's a rapid fire question. I give you two choices. You have only to select one. So, scaling strategy, blitz scaling or programmatic scaling?
Blitz scaling.
Yes, in fundraising, VC funding or external funding or bootstrapping?
We chose VC funding.
The scope of problem that you're solving, large global, pain points for focused niche, problem, very big and sharp.
That's a very personal question. We've chosen a very large global pain genre, which should take us years to solve, but that's what we would have found.
So you keep your global scale at scale problems. And then finally, leadership style, lead from the front or lead from behind, if you will.
Lead with the team. I mean, you're in it, wide front or back. I mean, you're far with you.
Amazing. So we even created a third. So it's with that. I wanted to thank both Sheetal and you, Caeser, for such a inspiring a conversation, and of course for sharing your words of wisdom. Of course, looking forward to every success for you and the team. It's an amazing journey.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Really enjoyed this conversation. Brilliant.
Follow us on the future ventures, and feel free to ask and comment, in the comment box, below.
Thank you so much, Mara and Sheetal, for having me on. It was a pleasure coming here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.